Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the latest edition of Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. It's the tennis podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. I'm Nigel Seeley, and our senior handicapper for Because We Win, Sean Calvert, has returned as well from New York after a couple of weeks or 10 days away, prepare us. And we're both actually off air complaining about how tired we were. Now, Sean, we've had very different trips. We look at it in a very different
trips.
We've had very different trips. But it's tough. It's a tough life.
There's tough and there's tough, isn't there? I don't think we're going to get much sympathy from people that are, doing very, very long shifts, long hours, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so in that sense, it's not tough. But in the sense of the traveling and stuff it just makes it difficult, doesn't it? Because if you're going somewhere like New York, for example, which for us is what 5-6 hour time difference, and you're there. It takes a couple of days. We were just saying it takes me a couple of days to kind of my body to kind of realize where it's at, and you're sort of a little bit groggy, aren't you, for the first day or so? You're a bit all over the place. Then you get in the swing of it, and your body is kind of in tune with the time zone that you're at, and then 24 hours later you're going home again. You got to do it all over again, which is, as I say, I'm not looking for sympathy here at all, but
no,
I am pretty tired, yeah, because I've been back in the UK now 24 hours. It just makes you, it is tiring. But
I think. Do you know what I think? I think we're very lucky to do what we do, and I think we're extremely lucky to do what we do. But we're both 50.
Well, you are.
Are you not? When you're 50, is it you coming up? Is it?
I might be 50. Yeah.
You're coming up 50, aren't you?
No, I am 50.
Well, okay, but anyway, I think what it is, if the opportunity come around for 25 or 30-year-old. We'd relish it. We'd be fantastic. We wouldn't have a headache when we got there. We wouldn't. I had to search.
Probably wouldn't have a show
tablets.
either. They'd be gone somewhere, disappeared, and you wouldn't see them again.
But I had to search. The first day I was in New York, I had to search for indigestion tablets. I had to search for headache tablets. I had to search heartburn. Like showing your age, mate.
I had to leave the arena to go and get what was it? Antihistamine.
Yeah, antihistamines.
My eyes started streaming a bit now. Actually, I don't know what's going on there.
Look, anyway, I think
like an OAP conference.
Exactly,
like saga tours.
That's what it is. We should be working for the OAPs. But anyway, it was a brilliant tournament. Tennis has been fantastic, and the players gone through to the semi-finals have been all different stories and different sort of angles. The best two players in the world have gone through, and we probably expected that at the beginning with the draw that Djokovic had, and the Alcaraz, obviously with the court conditions here, but. It hasn't been great for us on the outright market. Obviously, it's very heavy. We had hope, but we did worry about it. You brought the voice of wisdom in. I was the optimist and said, "Listen, we got a chance here." But you were right in that match yesterday against Alcaraz. He was spent, wasn't he?
Tall order, yeah. He played for almost 5 hours against Sin. I know he had 24 hours extra to recover. Well, 2 days, if you like, a clear day, but. I've never played a 4-hour, 41-minute tennis match in that sort. Well, I have, but only when I was about 10. And it wasn't. It wasn't
a 4 hours, 41 minutes at 10.
All summer. We had a grass court round the corner from us, where I grew up as a kid, and me and my mate used to play pretty much all day. But it wasn't Grand Slam level. It was two kids, having a game. But so yeah, I used to play for that sort of time when I was young. Yeah,
that's a long time. Best of 3 sets, best of 5 sets. You and your mate.
We just played whatever. We just used to play all day. That was it.
Look at the pair of us now. We're sweating away.
My eyes really started streaming now. I don't know what's going on there.
I think it must be allergic reaction to whenever you speak to me. But anyway, it's. But it's been.
I wasn't speaking to you when I had the Tommy Paul thing. I wasn't speaking to you then.
You must have some hay fever. It must be hay fever. It must be
possibly. I never used to get that. That's a new thing. As soon as you get to a certain age, you suddenly start randomly developing conditions that you never used to have. But anyway,
when I travel, the hand luggage, I say you have to one bag to come in, and my bag now is getting bigger and bigger with all the ointments, all the stuff.
I don't take anything. I just wing it, and then I always end up needing stuff because like the hay fever thing or the allergic reaction thing, whatever it was. I literally had to go all the way back to Flushing Main Street and back in the middle of a match. It still didn't do anything, the antihistamine, but anyway, never mind.
But you saw the match, and that's the main thing. Let's have a look at this US Open men's singles. Now, we're into the semi-finals. Novak Djokovic is the favourite, -125, bidding to make history again. The most successful player to reach the semi-finals. Carlos Alcaraz is +120, obviously in great form. Daniel Medvedev is $9, and then we've got the surprise package, Ben Shelton at 50-1 with Bet Rivers here. Really, the three of them, it's no surprise. Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Medvedev. And I think as we've seen this tournament here, they have been the best three players. Shelton has been impressive, but Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Medvedev have been the best three. Djokovic has obviously had the very easy route to the semi-finals. Alcaraz is probably arguably a tougher route. Where do you look at handicapping here when someone has had such a good, easy route through to the semi-finals? I always think that you want to be tested. You want to be tested. But Djokovic, we expect it to be Djokovic Alcaraz final. But do you think that helps Djokovic that he's been playing not so long games? And the only long game he did have was a night session against Jerry. Or do you think that that you want to be tested along the way, or do you think it helps if you're going through pretty easily?
I think it depends. In these conditions where it's been unbelievably hot, I think they'll both be absolutely delighted that they haven't played that many long matches. I mean, Djokovic played that 5-setter, didn't he? I'm sure he wasn't pleased about that. If I was Djokovic, 36 years of age, I wouldn't. I know, and I'm thinking of playing Alcaraz in the rounds coming up. I wouldn't be too happy about having to play 5 sets against Jerry. It's just I think the heat changes everything, doesn't it? Maybe if it was cooler, you'd think, maybe one match, maybe in the quarters, semi is a nice tight one to sort of warm you up a bit, so to speak. But I think in these conditions, it's very, very different. It's never been this hot as at the US Open before. I think they'll both just be very, very happy to have got through without expending a massive amount of energy, to be honest.
Well, I left on Sunday and it was very similar to temperature we're experiencing here now in London. You were there, you arrived when it really got hot, and we were sort of laughing about it, saying that you're going to get the good conditions, I'm going to get the bad conditions. Just explain how hot it actually was, compared to the travels you've been on. How was it for you?
I think it's the hottest conditions I've had this year, which isn't saying much because I was in Marrakesh and it rained. So, it didn't get that hot there when I was there. It was about, I think there was one day that was about 30, I think there, but it's a different kind of heat, isn't it? When you're in New York, it's like a furnace. I mean, I went down to as you probably saw on the Instagram, I did a bit of public transport as I always do. I mean, the heat on the subway was just, It was like a furnace. I mean, great props to the MTA, that the buses and the subways are both on the trains and on the buses. It's great aircon. It's absolutely fine. But once you step off that train onto the platform, it's absolutely burning. It's so hot, and the conditions on Armstrong they're just really sticky because when they had the roof on, the spectators were sitting there fanning themselves. It's just incredibly hot. It reminds me more of an Australian Open really than a US Open. These sort of temperatures. It's 34 degrees, which is very, very hot, and you got the humidity as well. I think the weather is going to cool down slightly over the next couple of days. There's sort of thunderstorms around, a little bit of rain around, but it's still going to be humid. I looked at the weather forecast for Friday for these matches, and it's depending on which match is on first. It's going to be somewhere between 70 and 80% humidity and 30 degrees. When these temperatures are taken in the shade, it's incredibly hot. Medvedev, I don't know whether you saw yesterday, Medvedev, his little outburst saying, someone's going to die out here. Maybe a slight exaggeration, but, we have seen players keeling over. Wu did it in Washington, D.C., because it completely collapsed at the changeover. It is dangerous conditions. It's really, really tough. I can't tell you how hot and humid it is there.
I sat and watched Katie Bolter in the women's draw get through, and the only reason I did it is I bet Katie Bolter would even play, and I ran from Arthur Ashe to watch the last set. And people.
Was that wise?
Yeah, well, she won that match.
I mean, you running in that heat?
Oh no, well, I mean like dad run. It's like like 2 shuffles and then a little brisk walk. But 2 people fainted in the last set around me. A woman completely fell down, and an old man collapsed. And just standing on, it was court number 5. Where you walk through, where the new bit is at the back, where you come out grandstand, and there's 3 courts next to each other. You can sit on the balcony and watch. They both passed out, so it was extremely, extremely hot, and obviously that is an important factor for tomorrow's play. We do not know
and it's got hotter since then, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's got hot, exactly. So
last few days, 34 degrees, which is very, very hot. Plus the humidity just makes it very, very tough on the players.
It's going to be tough on the outright market. I mean, it looks like it's going to be Djokovic, Alcaraz. Do you think anything? We're going to come to the matches here. There'll probably be an angle we'll find some value in. But do you see anything other than the inevitable in the final on that outright market?
No, I don't. I think if you're betting on the outrights now, I would be tempted to take Alcaraz at those prices. We'll talk a little more about the matches in a second, but I'm not sure we're backing Djokovic at odds on. I really don't. I'm not sure about that at all.
I think the reason why he's odds on is because on paper he's got the easiest draw against Ben Shelton. Obviously, he's got a very and obviously Alcaraz. We know that you've got a theory about Alcaraz against Medvedev, which probably we will come on to in the matches. But Djokovic Alcaraz in the final, if they met in the final, how would you bet it? 50-50 call?
Well, I presume Djokovic is going to be favourite, isn't he, based on that?
I don't think he would, I don't think he will. I think the reason he's minus 125 is because he plays Ben Shelton, who's 50-1, and Medvedev is 9-1. I think it'll be a 50-50 call. I think Alcaraz could potentially be a slight favourite, depending obviously of the timing of the match. It depends on obviously of the scheduling for tomorrow and the weather conditions. But I think it's 50-50.
So if you back Djokovic now at 1.8, he's going to be bigger in the final.
I think Djokovic will be 125 now, and I think Djokovic will be about 125 in the final. I think it's a given because I think the market will come for it. I don't think Djokovic will move. I think they think it's a given. I just think that might, and I think the market will come. Djokovic is no value now at minus 125, 100%.
Not for
me.
And
I think when we get to the final, I think it'll be a 50-50 call. And if Alcaraz beats Medvedev, I mean he's got to move 10% on the money line to go on the winner market to go. He's going to be minus 110. So it'll be that they're both of them will be pretty much the same price. It highlights the fact that Djokovic is no value now. You're going to get a better price on Djokovic to win the final if he plays Alcaraz. But the reason he's minus 125 because there is a probability that he plays Medvedev in the final, and he could be minus $5 or something.
Yeah. Well,
so that's probably why
certainly be a lot shorter, yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably why it is. Okay, let's move on to these matches that we have, the semi-finals in the men's singles at Flushing Meadow in the US Open, the final major of 2023. And the first game we're going to talk about is Alcaraz against Medvedev. Alcaraz is minus 360, Medvedev is plus 280. The spread here is 5.5 with Bet Rivers, minus 120 Alcaraz, minus 103 for Medvedev. The total is 26.5. If you look at the head-to-head, as Sean has alluded to before, he loves Alcaraz in this matchup. He leads 2-1. And the last two matches they played this year, they've been very one-sided. At Wimbledon, Alcaraz won in straight sets, 6-3, 6-6, 6-3 in the semi-finals. And in also this year in Indian Wells, Alcaraz won 6-3, 6-2. The only time that Medvedev did win was in Wimbledon in 2021, but Alcaraz was never near the player that he is now. Now, Sean, you've mentioned many times to me, as we all the way through this US Open, you've said if this was the semi-final, you couldn't see any way that Medvedev can beat Alcaraz. And now some people might have seen that argument, haven't seen that argument. Why is that? Why do you think that the game that Alcaraz has is just Medvedev can't match him?
I just think it's a terrible matchup for Medvedev. The way that Medvedev plays, it's all reactive, isn't it? Against Rublev yesterday, I was really disappointed in Rublev. It's difficult when you're Rublev. If you're Andre Rublev, you've had a very, very good career. You won titles, you've got Masters titles and all this sort of stuff. You probably don't think you need to change your game that much, but he had to against Medvedev. And but he didn't. He didn't do what he needed to do. He's desperately keen not to come into the net. You've got to come into the net against Medvedev. Rublev's trying to hit through him. You're not going to do that. If you're Carlos Alcaraz playing Medvedev, and you see Medvedev standing so deep. I mean, he couldn't get any closer to the line judge. Well, if there were line judges, to the back fence than he does. I mean, it's ridiculously deep. And he always says Medvedev, it's because he hasn't got the hand-eye coordination to move up the court and do it quick. He says he can only do it from there. That's a problem against Alcaraz or anybody that can come to the net, is comfortable coming to the net, and has a great drop shot. That's not just Alcaraz. Tsitsipas has done it. Kyrgios has done it very, very successfully against Medvedev. And unless Medvedev comes out and changes the way that he plays, which I don't think he can. I don't think he can change the style that he plays, but he's got to. If you're Medvedev now, what sort of discussion are you having with your coach? The coach is probably trying to G him up, say, you've won this before, you're world number one, you can win this. But I honestly don't think he can unless he changes things, because he doesn't know whether to stick or twist Medvedev sometimes. If he's that deep, he's open for the drop shot, and Alcaraz has a great drop shot. But if he moves up the court, Alcaraz can kill him with the forehand, that very, very heavy forehand. So what does he do? What he tends to do is just what he normally does. and hopes that it will work, which is exactly what Rublev did yesterday. Rublev did what he always does and just hoped that it would work, and it didn't. All right, it was a breakup in all 3 sets. Arguably, he perhaps should have won a set, but Rublev, he never looked like he was going to hold on to that lead, did he? And that's because he's trying to just hit through Medvedev, which isn't, it's not going to work unless Medvedev has an off day. Alcaraz has got so many weapons at his disposal: the drop shot, the heavy forehand, the backhand. He can do what he wants, Alcaraz, in this matchup. Unless Medvedev moves off that back fence, he's got no chance. I mean, I'll go through the stats if you want. It's so one-sided. Yeah. We're ignoring the first match because that was played, as you said, in Alcaraz's rookie year on the main tour. Medvedev won that one, as you would expect. But the 2 that he's played this year, the service points won and return points won totals, Alcaraz 117 to Medvedev's 83. Service hold break totals, Alcaraz 132 to 68 to Medvedev. Medvedev's held serve 59% of the time against Alcaraz and broken serve 9% of the time. Medvedev's won only 34% of his second serve points. Alcaraz has won 57% of his second serve points. I mean, it doesn't get any more one-sided than that. It's just a very, very, very tricky matchup for Medvedev. And, a lot of these players, they don't like changing the way that they play. Some of them physically can't do it. Some of them just have the mindset that they can't do it and then won't do it. I've talked about Taylor Fritz, doesn't have enough layers to his game, just does the same thing. Rublev, the same. If he'd got a drop shot, if he was comfortable at net, Rublev might have been a different story against Medvedev, but it wasn't. Medvedev's got to do something different. I just don't know if he's capable of doing it.
Before we go on to the pick here and the advice here, if you've looked across social media today, you've seen a lot of interviews with Zverev has said that Alcaraz and Djokovic are on a different level to him. Tony Nadal said, these players are nowhere near the caliber of what they were. And people have questioned whether Djokovic 10 years ago would beat the Djokovic now. And the answer most certainly from everyone is no, it wouldn't be. Djokovic hasn't actually officially answered that question. But do you think that the caliber of players that we have now, obviously these young guns that we thought might lift their games, that they need to, they've got the talent, they know what they're going to do, they win these 500 events, they're going to win. But for majors, they've got to really change it up. And, we thought, didn't we, as tennis bettors, that we thought we might have an era where we're going to make money, that get some outsiders, what you do and what I do is look for value on the outsiders. It hasn't materialized because the courts are slower, the players aren't as good, and the Djokovic still going on. He could go on for another 2 or 3 years, couldn't he, and win these tournaments?
Yeah, I mean, you look at what Djokovic did. I don't know how many years ago it was now. It was quite a few years ago when he first kind of came to the fore. And he was battling away against Federer and Nadal, and right at the early stages, he perhaps wasn't winning as many of those matches. Then he brought in Boris Becker. I think it was Boris Becker, wasn't it? Because he realized that he needed to add more layers to his game. He wasn't going to beat these guys consistently by just being a baseliner, and he completely changed his attitude.
Well, it was his serve. His serve was never considered to be his biggest attribute.
And later on the serve, with Ivanisevic that he brought in, but initially he brought Becker in to give him a sort of net game, and then he brought Ivanisevic in later on with the serve, which is very underrated. I'm not seeing any of these younger players that are willing to do that. And I'm off the top of my head, I'm talking about Rublev, I'm talking about Taylor Fritz. These guys that just think they can do the one thing, the one style of play, and that's going to win the majors. It might do. Maybe if Alcaraz wasn't around, he's kind of come on the scene, and Djokovic wasn't still around. But you've got to raise your game, haven't you? Unless, and this seems to be the case, unless they're just happy with what they've done. Yeah, I'm top 10. I've made the top 10 in the world. I've won a Masters or whatever. If they're happy with that, that's absolutely fine. It's not for me to say what they should and shouldn't do in their careers. But if I was them, if I was in their position, and I'm thinking, like Fritz particularly, for example, nowhere near against Djokovic again the other day. Why? Well, because he doesn't have those layers to his game. He cannot come to the net. He doesn't want to come to the net. Doesn't really have much of a drop shot. No forecourt game. Djokovic knows exactly what's coming, and he's able to deal with it. It's all too predictable. These guys have got to start coming up with different layers to their game. Alcaraz does it. Alcaraz, I'm sure when he started playing as a kid, I'm sure he wasn't coming to the net as often as he is now. He's obviously incorporated that into his game. You've got to have these layers to your game. Otherwise, you're just going to be a sort of an also-ran, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's quite disappointing at the moment that, you know, we come into this stage of the tennis season, and the stronger are getting stronger and the weaker are getting weaker. And I thought Sinner was a breakthrough. I thought Zverev a breakthrough, and Medvedev. We're talking about clearly the third best tennis player in the world up against a guy vying for number one spot, and we can't see any way of him causing any damage. There's 60. Sorry, go on, Sean.
Sorry, mate. I was going to say, if it was Medvedev Djokovic, I would give Medvedev more of a chance against Djokovic, much more of a chance actually against Djokovic. I think the way he plays, you know, it suits him against Djokovic rather than it absolutely doesn't suit him against Alcaraz. So Medvedev's probably thinking, well, I'd rather have Djokovic. I would be, if I was Medvedev, I would be thinking I would rather play Djokovic than Alcaraz for sure. And Sinner, you were just mentioning there. I think with him, I think he does have some of the layers to his game, but he needs to add a better forecourt game. But the main problem with him is fitness, isn't it?
Exactly. Anyway, it's good. Looks like it's going to be inevitable there for Alcaraz here against Medvedev. But there's 64 different markets available on the Bet Rivers website. Head across there. You can live stream the match if you're not able to watch it at home. We don't know actually what time this is going to start, so check the website overnight tonight or tomorrow. You'll be able to see the time this match starts. But Sean, for you, where I mean, there's so many markets you can get with Alcaraz. You can get 3-0. You can get the handicap. You can get with the set handicap. What's the angle of attack in terms of your thinking strategy for this match?
Alcaraz on the handicap. I'm just going to mention another thing about Medvedev, actually. I mentioned a few days ago, I think, on the show that he's relying far too much on his first serve. If you look at his second serve points won in his recent matches here, Medvedev, 28% he won against Rublev and won in straight sets. 40% against de Minaur, won 3-1, and 41% against Bears. So he's relying an awful lot on first serve. That isn't going to be enough against Alcaraz. The other issue is before I go on to the bet, the other issue is obviously the heat. You know, Medvedev's he's had the doctor out numerous times, hasn't he? Breathing problems. He's had inhaler, all this sort of stuff. Very vocal about the conditions being too tough. So I think it all points to an Alcaraz win with something to spare. I've taken -6.5 games at plus money, plus 123 Bet Rivers on this one.
And that's still available now on the website. If you head to the Bet Rivers website, 6.5 at plus 123. The market that you'll see first when you see is 5.5. It just moved a little toggle across. You'll see 6.5. But we don't see anything other than Alcaraz getting through to the final fairly comfortably, as the form would suggest this year in 2023 against Medvedev in their previous two meetings. The next match, the other semi-final, it's Novak Djokovic, -1667 against Ben Shelton at plus $9. The total games here is 31.5, and the money line, the spread, is 7.5. Djokovic -117. Shelton plus 7.5 is -107. You can move that toggle down to 6.5, 8.5, whichever one you want to play. Let's talk about. We all know about Novak Djokovic. Everyone knows about Novak Djokovic. Ben Shelton. He's had an unbelievable tournament. He's broke through. He's a breath of fresh air for the tennis world. Everyone's put a little bit of hopes on him. If Wimbledon was fast like it used to be, we'd be betting him now. I'd be looking at now the futures for Wimbledon next year and the Wimbledon next year. But where's Ben Shelton? What's he going to? It needs to be so quick for him to cause any problems for Djokovic or Alcaraz. He seems mentally quite strong. He seems a great guy. He's got a great game, the fastest serve in the world. You know, that was the one that won you Wimbledon now. But he's a big outsider here to win this match. But people might be looking at for Wimbledon. But already Wimbledon's not like it was. Where's his career going to go?
And unless they speed the courts up, probably not as far as he wants it to go, I should think. You know, this US Open's slightly, and statistically, it's slightly slower than last year. That's not a great indicator for me. Once it starts going slower, they tend to carry on going slower. They don't suddenly speed it up again the next year. Wimbledon, as we've said, it's not really an old-fashioned grass court tournament. It hasn't been for many, many years now, since they changed the type of grass seed that they used to slow it down. They've got what they wanted, basically. They wanted everything slower, longer matches, none of this 7-6, 6-7, 7-6, 7-6 business. They wanted more baseline play, less of the sort of big serve, volley, point over sort of stuff. They wanted to get rid of that, and they basically have, haven't they? There aren't many serve volleyers around now. You know, you look at people like Cressy and, you know, one or two others, but it's been a dying breed for a long time. And, you know, you're not going to encourage as a coach of young players. You're not going to be teaching this, I don't think, are you? No. Because there's no real value to it. You could certainly teach it to have as a string to your bow as a player. You could, someone like Rublev, for example, has if you'd have had that yesterday, might have seen a different story. But I don't think it's getting coached. As far as Shelton's concerned, I looked at his numbers actually. This US Open, massively better on return this tournament, Ben Shelton, than he has been previously. Coming into this tournament, he averaged roughly 31% of return points won, which is very, very poor. It's better than Isner, but not by much. It's a big server's kind of stat that you would expect. But he's actually won 40% of return points this US Open, that's a huge difference. Now, whether that's just a one-off, I don't know. Whether he's just been on fire this week and that number's going to drop back down to more like sort of 31, 32, 33 that we've seen before. I don't know. But that's a huge increase. So he's done a lot better on return. He's serving bombs. Talking about the two players that he's just played, TFO, I don't know whether you saw the quote from TFO. I was going to find it, actually. He basically said that he bottled it, TFO. Where's the quote? So TFO, he said, usually when it comes to these stages of the tournament, I'm the underdog. Today I was the favorite and I suffered a bit with this new role. I probably put too much pressure on myself. When you're the underdog, you go onto the court without worries. You just play. Today it was different. So in a nutshell, TFO just couldn't handle the pressure of being favorite. He's another one, loves the role of the underdog. I can beat these big guys. When it comes to you being the favorite, that's a whole different ball game. And he suffered with that. Tommy Paul, I think, potentially suffered with that as well. Being the favorite to beat Shelton, but he really blew his chance. Tommy Paul, he could have been, as I said on the other show, could have been 4-love up, double break, would have been a very different match. From Shelton's point of view, serving great, and he's returning a lot better than he has done before. So I think it depends on his attitude. If he comes in here, if you're Ben Shelton, your first Grand Slam semi-final, you've got Novak Djokovic over the other side of the net, and you don't start particularly well, you got a problem. But from Shelton's point of view, those return numbers are great.
I don't think he's going to win it. There's no way I think he's going to win it. I think whatever happens, Novak Djokovic will be in that final. I think Ben Shelton. But I think he's a kid that I think will rise to the occasion. We spoke about him at the very beginning of the season as one to follow. Myself and James Blake spoke about him. I tipped him up in the tournament, the very first tournament of the season in Auckland, and he hasn't had anything of the year. But this kid has got potential. He's got everything going for him. And I think if he can get to a good start, he get that crowd going behind him. I'm sure this will be the night match. I'm certain this will be the night match.
You would think.
They're both going to be night matches, but this will be the later one. But I think the Americans will get behind him, and I think he's a kid who will rise to the game. I don't think he'll win it, but I don't like you like the betting on the players to win the set. I think over 31.5 games is very tempting at -117. With that serve going, and Djokovic can quite easily just raise his level and break him at 5-5. I think over 31.5. I can't see Djokovic winning this 6-1, 6-2, 6-3. I think we've got a good run in play. And I think over 31.5 here at -117 is a bet for me. I like that. I really do.
I think from Shelton's point of view, it does depend on how he shows up. Nervous, maybe. We don't know. He does have the element of surprise, if you like. He's never played Djokovic before. I'm sure Djokovic will have watched many, many videos and stuff of him by now. So he's going to know. It's one thing knowing what to expect, and it's another thing experiencing it. It might take him a little bit of time. My worry with the overs would be that, he might start well and then, Djokovic really gets on top of him. Has Shelton got as many layers to his game? The issues I'm talking about earlier. Does he have anything other than the sort of raw power element? He's got a decent little drop shot. I saw him play a couple against Tommy Paul. I can't see it being enough against Novak Djokovic. I think
would you be betting over or under 31.5, Sean? If I gave you a free $500 and said you could bet over or under 31.5, what would you bet?
Do I have to have that market?
You have to have it on a different market. No, you can have that market. That's the only market I'm asking you. You got to be over. You can't be betting under.
I'm just thinking about you. You put me on the spot now. Over 31.5. So that's 10s, 20. He could well cover the over 31.5.
31.5 is a good cover. I think, or maybe even Ben Shelton games. I think Ben Shelton games could be an over. I don't think he doesn't seem that kind of boy. And the other thing with Djokovic, the amount of breakpoint opportunities he offered Taylor Fritz the other day. was insane, and he didn't capitalise on it. Big points in big matches.
Well,
I know
that's where.
Sorry,
Go on. No,
I know he's a brick wall, and I know that he doesn't give away those opportunities, and he raises his game at the big points. But I think Shelton's going to have opportunities here, and I think he's going to come in field. I don't think for 1 minute he's going to win. It's going to be Djokovic in the final and against Alcaraz. Well, I strongly believe that. But I think 31.5. I think that's a decent play there, and I'm going to throw it in as an official play. My first official play here. 1 unit.
Confident.
I am confident. Over 31.5 games in this match here, which is -117. I think that's a bet.
Okay. I can certainly see that could be. If he gets 7-5, 7-6 first set, you've pretty much done it, haven't you? Really?
Yeah.
Unless he sort of unless he fades away, which I don't know. It's the first Grand Slam semi-final. You know, who knows? You're going with the view that he's got the minerals,
I think he's got.
like,
I think he's got the yes.
To sort of go, well, look, the confidence of youth, if you like, you know, I'm going in there and I'm going to give it a shot, and
I'm serving the world record serve. I'm up against the world number one. This is my time to shine. I'm not going to freeze. I'm not going to be like anyone else. This is my time to show. I think he's going to go for it the first set, second set, third set, potentially a fourth set. I think he's hanging on for dear life. But I think the first set he goes all in, and I think even the over 9.5 in the first set, I think that's a bet.
Well, I've got some stats here for you.
Go on in.
Let's have a look. Novak Djokovic, where is it?
Are these going to help my argument or not?
No, I don't think they are, to be honest.
Okay.
No. Okay, so Djokovic 25-1 win-loss in majors so far this season. That's one thing. Djokovic in major semi-finals. He's 22-1 win-loss since losing to Kai Nishikori in the 2014 US Open semi-final. The only time he's lost is when Dominic Thiem beat him in the French 2019. Ben Shelton's the second lowest ranked opponent Djokovic has ever met in a major semi-final. The lowest ranked was Karatsev, 114 in 2021 Australian Open. Scrolling down a bit further, I've taken Djokovic against left-handers. Obviously, Ben Shelton's left-hander. Djokovic has only lost one completed match on outdoor hard to a left-hander whose name wasn't Nadal since 2009. He's 36-1 win-loss in that time. Do you remember who the one was, that lefty that he lost to on a hard court? It's quite recently.
Recently? No, I don't.
He also beat Djokovic on clay. Jiri Vesely.
Oh, I wouldn't have got that.
Beat him in Dubai, but Djokovic had only played 2 matches in the previous 10 weeks because of he couldn't go to Australia, could he? So he was a little bit rusty there. Djokovic versus left-handers at Grand Slams on outdoor hard, so Australian and the US Open. Unbeaten since 2013 when he lost to Nadal in the US Open final. And the last one, Djokovic hasn't been taken past 10 games in set 1 by any left-hander on a hard court at a major in the 8 matches he's played against them since 2015.
Okay, all right. We know what you're trying to say here. Come on.
I'm just putting the stats out there.
That's all right. Okay. None of these are a young American kid on the up who's got the home crowd before 20,000 people and half rash cheering him on. I'm sticking with Shelton. Big Ben, come on, he can do it. Over 31.5 games. Any more stats? Any more stats I could give you?
I think that's about it for the minute.
Okay.
I think that's pretty much enough. My lean here was just to take a chance on the set 1 score. I've basically gone Djokovic 6-3 at 3.7. It's just a lean though. It's not a confident play. You're obviously more confident about this than I am.
I'll take 6-3. I'll take 6-3 in the first set.
The reason I've done that is just because I feel like it's probably going to be a 1-break set. It kind of depends who serves first. Obviously, you're always guessing with these sort of bets because it very much does depend on who wins the toss and whether they choose to receive or serve or whatever. But that was my lean on this one. Djokovic 6-3. I think it's probably be a 1-break set. I'm like you. I don't think he's going to keep breaking Shelton. I think it's going to be a relatively tight one, but I think 1 break would be enough for Djokovic.
Well, there you have it. Difference of opinion, but fantastic stats. And, it's an overwhelming favourite in front of Djokovic, and the stats there back that up completely. We don't think there's going to be any reason why it won't be Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz that we will be previewing on Saturday. Tomorrow, I'll be with Rory Giovanni previewing the women's final as well. Hopefully, our tip Mukova gets through to the final. She's up against Corey Goff. So we'll see what happens there. So it's an interesting match on the women's finals. You can check out Rory's videos and our Instagram account and our Twitter account, which is @BecauseWeWin. And there's 4 ways to follow us here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. You can follow us on our podcast, which is Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, which you can download on your preferred podcast provider. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Betting Weekly Studios, and obviously you can follow us on our socials as well. And also, Bet Rivers have a brilliant offer, which is running out. So if you haven't capitalized on this offer, make sure you do. It's a US Open offer daily for the main draw. Get a 50% match bet up to $25 on a live wager each day of the US Open. And you've only got a few days left to make sure you place that wager and get your bonus. So, Sean, thank you very much. I know you're tired. I know it's been a long trip back, and we've all got our ailments, but that's age, my friend. That's age. If we were 25,
seemingly,
we would be ready and raring to go. But anyway, it's been a fascinating tournament. Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz look like they're going to make the final. Djokovic now -125, absolutely no value at all. Alcaraz, Medvedev. Sean has said it for all tournament. He doesn't see any way Medvedev can beat Alcaraz unless he changes up. Has he got the capability to change up? And I think Big Ben Shelton is going to give some Americans some hope on Arthur Ashe. And I'm going to go for over 31.5 goals. If you follow us in or if you fade us, good luck, whatever you do. And we'll be back again on tomorrow with Rory looking at the women's final, and myself and Sean will be looking at the men's final on Saturday. Have a great couple of days, and we'll speak to you soon.